The historic numbers. The year 2011 stands out in U.S. history as the most destructive tornado year in modern memory. In total, 1,691 tornadoes were confirmed, a figure far above the long-term average. Even more shocking was the death toll of 553 people, the highest since 1925. To put that in perspective, most years see around 70 tornado deaths nationwide. Thousands more were injured, and entire neighborhoods were left in ruins. The destruction was widespread, cutting across the Midwest, Southeast, and Southern plains. From sprawling metropolitan areas to small rural towns, no region seemed immune. What makes these numbers even more striking is the fact that tornado prediction technology was already advanced in 2011, with radar and warning systems in place. Despite this, the storms were so violent and widespread that survival often depended on luck. The numbers alone don't just tell a story of weather extremes. They reveal how fragile communities can be when faced with nature at its most violent. For many survivors, 2011 isn't just a statistic. It's the year their lives were forever changed. The super outbreak of April. One of the most infamous events of 2011 was the super outbreak of April 25th to 28th. Over just 4 days, 360 tornadoes touched down across 21 states. It remains the largest tornado outbreak in U.S. history. The scale was so overwhelming that emergency services struggled to even keep up with the destruction. Tornadoes struck back to back, sometimes only minutes apart, leaving survivors with little time to recover between waves. The outbreak stretched from Texas all the way to New York, proving just how widespread the danger was. Entire towns in Alabama, Tennessee, and Mississippi were flattened. In places like Hackleburg, Alabama, EF5 tornadoes ripped homes from their foundations and tossed vehicles like toys. More than 320 people died in this single outbreak, making it one of the deadliest multi-day tornado events on record. Meteorologists later said the atmospheric conditions that week were the perfect storm for tornadoes, with powerful jet stream winds clashing with warm, moist air from the Gulf of Mexico. The April super outbreak wasn't just destructive, it was historic, a once-in-a-generation event that highlighted the terrifying power of nature. The Tuscaloosa-Birmingham EF4. On April 27th, during the peak of the super outbreak, one of the most infamous tornadoes of modern times struck Alabama. Known as the Tuscaloosa-Birmingham EF4, this storm carved a path over 80 miles long. With winds approaching 190 miles per hour, it shredded neighborhoods, destroyed schools, and collapsed apartment complexes. Tuscaloosa, a city of more than 90,000 residents, was particularly devastated. The tornado killed 65 people and injured over 1,500. Entire sections of the city looked like a bomb had gone off. The sheer width of the storm, sometimes over a mile across, meant that entire blocks disappeared in minutes. What made this tornado especially terrifying was its visibility. Many residents watched the massive wedge cloud approach in broad daylight, yet there was little they could do to escape its path. In Birmingham, Alabama's largest city, thousands more were left homeless as the storm moved east. For Alabamians, the Tuscaloosa-Birmingham tornado became a symbol of 2011's horror. And even today, survivors describe the storm as life-changing. It was a tragedy that revealed both the destructive force of nature and the resilience of communities in its aftermath. The Joplin, Missouri EF5. Just a month after the April outbreak, tragedy struck again. On May 22, 2011, an EF5 tornado ripped through the city of Joplin, Missouri. This tornado would become the deadliest single U.S. tornado in over 6 decades, killing 162 people and injuring more than 1,000. With winds exceeding 200 miles per hour, the tornado carved a path nearly 13 miles long and up to a mile wide, cutting straight through the heart of the city. The destruction was catastrophic. St. John's Regional Medical Center, a major hospital, was heavily damaged, forcing emergency evacuations while power lines dangled dangerously in the wreckage. Schools, businesses, and entire neighborhoods were flattened. Survivors recalled cars being tossed like toys and entire houses reduced to splinters in seconds. Damage costs reached $2.8 billion, making it the costliest tornado in U.S. history. Joplin's tornado wasn't just a weather event, it was a humanitarian crisis. The city had to mobilize every resource to recover, from federal aid to volunteer assistance. For many Americans, Joplin remains the face of 2011's tornado disasters, a reminder of how quickly life can change when nature unleashes its fury. Multiple EF5 tornadoes. What makes 2011 particularly shocking is not just the number of tornadoes, but the number of EF5s. These are the most powerful tornadoes on the enhanced Fujita scale, with winds exceeding 200 miles per hour. Most years, the US might see one EF5, or none at all. In 2011, there were 6 confirmed EF5 tornadoes. That included the Joplin storm, the Hackleburg-Phil Campbell tornado in Alabama, and others in Mississippi, Oklahoma, and Kansas. Each one caused catastrophic damage, leveling homes to bare foundations and turning entire towns into wastelands. The fact that multiple EF5s occurred in the same year highlights just how extreme the atmospheric conditions were. For scientists, this raised urgent questions about climate variability and whether certain weather patterns were becoming more favorable for violent tornadoes. For survivors, however, it was a nightmare. Each EF5 tornado left behind a path of destruction so complete that recovery often took years. To face even one EF5 is rare. To face 6 in a single year was unprecedented, cementing 2011's place in history as a year of unparalleled tornado violence. Record-breaking April. April 2011 wasn't just bad, it was the worst tornado month ever recorded in U.S. history. A staggering 753 tornadoes touched down that month, smashing the previous record by more than 200. For comparison, the average April typically sees about 160 tornadoes. This sudden explosion of activity overwhelmed local emergency systems. Entire states were under back-to-back tornado watches, with sirens sounding daily. Communities barely had time to repair one set of damages before the next round of storms arrived. Meteorologists later explained that April's weather patterns created a tornado factory, with warm, moist air from the Gulf colliding with cold fronts sweeping across the plains. Add in a powerful jet stream overhead, and you had a recipe for constant supercells. The sheer number of tornadoes meant that almost no region of the South or Midwest was untouched. From Texas to Virginia, April 2011 became synonymous with fear, destruction, and heartbreak. Its record-setting activity makes it one of the most infamous months in weather history. And for those who lived through it, the memory of endless sirens is impossible to forget. Perfect storm of weather conditions. The science behind 2011's outbreak year is fascinating and frightening. A combination of factors made the atmosphere unusually volatile. La Niña conditions in the Pacific cooled the ocean, which tends to strengthen jet streams over North America. Meanwhile, the Gulf of Mexico provided abundant, warm, moist air, the fuel for thunderstorms. Add in unusually strong cold fronts sweeping down from Canada, and you had a near-constant clash of air masses. This produced the supercells that spawned tornadoes. But what made 2011 stand out was how persistent these conditions were. It wasn't just a single week of bad weather. For months, the setup repeated itself, creating wave after wave of storms. Meteorologists described it as a perfect storm season, where every ingredient aligned at the worst possible time. These conditions explain why tornadoes in 2011 were not only frequent, but also unusually intense, with many reaching EF4 and EF5 strength. It's a reminder of how sensitive our weather is to global patterns, and how quickly those patterns can create disaster on an unimaginable scale.